across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
There you are. Good afternoon and welcome to Drive Time right here on Talk. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan and I'll be your host for 3 powerhouse hours of news, views and topical debate all the way to 7 o'clock. Get involved, get on the show, get on the phone and call me on 0344 499 1000, or you can WhatsApp voice note me on the same number and I promise to play your message out. It is Monday, May the 4th. May the 4th be with you. Here's what's coming up. As always, in times of domestic strife, this much we know. Never Hear Keir will dodge his duty and jet off abroad to pretend to be important on the international stage, even though he's not. This time, our Supreme Leader has gone to Armenia for some EU summit in order to sell the Brexit vote down the river by begging to be allowed back into the single market, for which he'll agree to pay £1 billion a year. He'll also sign the UK up to the £75 billion loan scheme as we hand even more money to Ukraine, a ruinously costly cause that Starmer and most out-of-touch MPs believe that the vast majority of cash-strapped Brits unhesitatingly support. Are they right? Do you back the sending of untold billions to Kiev forevermore? 0344 499 1000. Also on today's action-packed show, 600,000 homes are now raking in more than £32,000 a year on welfare, meaning that they're making more in benefits than the average income of working people with jobs. How mad is that? 0344 499 1000. Meanwhile, Reform UK unveils its policy to inflict migrant detention centres on constituencies that vote Green candidates into power. Kind of fun, but won't that punish Reform supporters who happen to live in areas stupid enough to go for Polanski's poisonous version of Green? 0344 499 1000. In other news, the leadership Labour battle continues apace as Starmer vows to fight off all challengers, really, including Andy Burnham, Angela Rayner and West Streeton, all of whom are ready to roll. Good luck, Keir. God knows you're going to need it. 0344 499 1000. Plus, Jew hate in all its lack of glory as pro-Palestine anti-Semites campaign to ban veteran Coronation Street Maureen Lipman from performing at Aberdeen's His Majesty's Theatre, and in their pernicious posters depict her as the devil because she's Jewish. Isn't that special? Why is this kind of racism even allowed? 0344 499 1000. She's appearing in a play called Allegra. It's just a light-hearted, fun play about a woman who is relentlessly positive. So much so she exudes joy and she sings all the time and it kind of irritates people. That's what the play's about. It's not about Jewish issues or anything. They're campaigning to ban Maureen Lipman from appearing at His Majesty's Theatre in Aberdeen with these posters depicting her as the devil because, for this one reason, she's Jewish. That is shameless, naked anti-Semitism. Illegal Jew hate. Why is it being allowed? 0344 499 1000. Leave Dame Maureen Lipman alone. Seriously. Also, the stupidest trigger warning ever as the Royal Shakespeare Company alerts theatregoers to the fact that its new play about Adolf Hitler and the Nazis may contain references to the Nazis. What next? A warning that Romeo and Juliet may contain references to Romeo and Juliet? When is this asinine, intelligence-insulting nonsense going to stop? Why do they treat us like children? 0344 499 1000. And finally, the latest on royal runaways Harry and Meghan amid reports that they've burned all their bridges and King Charles is set to cut them adrift. Should he take away the royal titles that this grasping couple are so shamelessly cashing in on? The late, great Queen's worst nightmare, exactly what she didn't want. Should Charles act? Should Charles detitle the Sussexes? 03444991000. All that and so much more, so don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Monday afternoon together. Bank holiday Monday afternoon, but lots going on. Let's go straight over to Talk's brilliant international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Welcome, Isabel.
Good afternoon.
Let's talk first about Never Hear Keir's latest trip abroad. There's trouble at home. Whenever there's trouble at home, which is most of the time, you know one thing, that our Prime Minister will get on a plane and fly abroad, where they'll take him a little bit more seriously than they do here. He's gone to an EU summit in Armenia, of all places, Armenia being a very close ally of Russia, where all the Brussels gang, you know, are talking about what they usually talk about, all their regulations and rules and red tape that they're addicted to. But Keir Starmer is lobbying them to be allowed, for Britain to be allowed back into the single market, a direct betrayal of the Brexit vote. Apparently, when he mooted this some months ago, they said, oh, yeah, we'd love that. And he was thrilled. Oh, yeah, they're going to we can get back into the single market, or our economy will be saved, and all that claptrap. Apparently, he was terribly shocked when about a week later they said, oh, you do realise that in order for Britain to come back into the single market, we'll have to charge you at least £1 billion a year. That requirement is still on the table. He is now going to sign up to that. So he's going to betray Brexit. He's going to betray what the vast majority of British citizens voted for. That was to leave the EU and all its rules, regulations and restrictions. And he's going to sign us back into the single market, exactly what we wanted to leave. And for that, he's going to agree to give Brussels £1 billion a year. This man needs to be put in a straitjacket, if you ask me. This is ridiculous.
Well, don't forget how many billions he was prepared to spend on giving away the Chagos Islands. You know, £1 billion here or there is nothing to Sir Keir, while he complains and bases his policy on our economy being in the doldrums, apparently in his mind purely because of Brexit. He's throwing yet more money down the Brussels pan, only to find that actually the economies in the EU, across the EU, are not doing particularly well either. And the reality is that the reason our economy is going down the toilet is because of his own domestic policies. It's because of the policies of Chancellor Rachel Reeves, the sky-high taxes that the Tories imposed and Labour has only gold-plated. They've only made things even more punitive. They continue to punish success. They continue to allow the welfare state to get ever more excessive and bloated. And they continue to impose policies that are totally bad for business and discourage risk-taking and make it really hard to employ people. So I'm afraid I've got news for Keir Starmer. If he signs up to this, if he forces the British taxpayer to pay out £1 billion, and it won't just be that, will it? It'll be way more than that, in order to re-enter something that a majority of the British people, albeit a narrow majority, voted to leave. That's not going to be a magic wand to wave to make our economy suddenly healthy again. And more than that, it's going to really, really infuriate millions of people. 17.4 million people voted for Brexit. Some of them might have changed their mind. I also meet plenty of people who say, if I had my time again, I'd vote for Brexit now. I didn't first time round. Very high risk what he's doing here. You know, I think he's taking a political calculation that he can galvanise the central left-wing vote around a kind of let's basically rejoin the EU thing. That's going to become his rallying cry. I think it's going to backfire and backfire very badly.
Yeah, the thing is that where we're at now, Isabel, where the Prime Minister is at, he doesn't care about us anymore. He isn't even thinking about the British citizens who don't want to be in the UK. He isn't even thinking about the democratic vote that elected this country to leave Brussels to leave the EU. He isn't thinking about that. The only thing he's thinking about is appeasing the backbenchers and Labour MPs who he's going to need to cling on to his rotten little job. So he is just trying to please the left-wingers, the far left lunatics on the backbenches of the Labour ranks in order to appease them. He doesn't care about us. So if he goes over to Armenia and says, hey, I'm going to sign us back up into the single market, millions of Brits will be absolutely outraged. But they do not have a say in him keeping his job this week with the expected shellacking that Labour are going to get at the local elections on Thursday. The people of this country don't have a say in Keir Starmer's personal future as our Prime Minister, but the MPs and the left-wingers in the Labour Party do, and that is who he's trying to appease right now. He doesn't care about us. It's just the lefties in Labour who can save his sorry backside. It's pathetic.
I mean, it's astonishing, really, if you think about it. I mean, we're what are we? We're 3 days out from the local elections. Forgive the noise in the background. We've got some various developments going on in the Middle East at the moment, which I'm sure people will be hearing about in the hours and days to come. That was just an alert on my phone.
Okay.
So unfortunately, turning it to silent doesn't work. So what I was saying,
you're okay though. You're safe, yeah.
Yeah, we're all good here. We're all good.
Okay. I've got to check. I don't want you sitting there if there's going to be bombs dropping down. So.
No, I think that was the all clear.
Okay. Good. Okay.
Yeah. So just to revert to what I was saying, we're 3 days out from the local government elections. I find it absolutely unconscionable that the Labour Party leader would not be in the country at this time, unless, of course, he knows that his presence is actually going to reduce Labour's votes. He is so unpopular.
You're right.
Actually, perhaps it was a good strategy to get the hell out of the country, because who wants Keir Starmer campaigning in their area? It's only going to put people off, isn't it? But I still think even if you go on that slightly cynical and sad interpretation that the Labour Party knows that Keir Starmer is an absolute electoral liability, I mean, a leader doesn't run away, do they, from what they've created? And it just somehow feels wrong. You know, if he is effectively acknowledging that he, as the Prime Minister, A, and B, as leader of the Labour Party, is actually an electoral liability, then that says to me, it's time to go. It's time to resign.
There's all sorts of rumours going around in Westminster about what he will do come Friday, the day after the elections. But he seems to, so far, be sticking to his guns and saying, I'll fight off any challenger, which will just cause even more of a mess. Let's just quickly look, though, at the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, at what he said shortly after landing in Armenia on the latest of his many, many, many very expensive foreign trips. Take it away, Keir.
In relation to the EU loan that we are discussing participating in, that is very good for Ukraine because it will give Ukraine capability that it desperately needs in year 5 of this conflict. It's very good for the UK because it'll be capability that leads to jobs in the United Kingdom, and it's very good for UK-EU relations, which is very important as we go on to the various discussions we're going to have today.
Oh, well, if it's good for UK-EU relations, let's give Ukraine zillions of pounds. Anything that fosters our friendship with Brussels, that's the most important thing, isn't it? Very quickly, Isabel, your take on this. So he wants us to contribute significantly to a £78 billion loan scheme to support Ukraine. That's 90 billion euros. Our portion of that will be huge, billions of pounds. Now, we've discussed this before. Now, I get it. We have to look after Ukraine. We cannot let Russia just advance unchallenged. So I do get it. But what annoys me about the Westminster bubble gang, of all parties, including Starmer and his party. They all walk around with their Ukraine badges, and they all take it for granted that every single British citizen is foursquare behind handing Kiev and Zelensky billions and billions of pounds every year, billions of pounds worth of weapons. And I got bad news for them. Every British citizen is not behind that. In fact, I think British citizens are getting pretty sick and tired of handing billions and billions of pounds to a foreign country a long way away when they are all struggling so much right back here at home.
I think that there's a limit, isn't there? And that's what's always such a difficult question. You know, I'm very strongly in favour of contributing to a worldwide effort of the good to stop the bad in this case being Putin. And I fully support combined efforts to send out and continue sending the message that you don't get to do what the evil Russian president has done. But at the same time, how much is enough? You know, I don't know how long we can go on contributing billions to this effort when we are on our knees as a country. I mean, I think it's a better use of money than an awful lot else that this government squanders vast sums on. But at the same time, there has to be reasonable proportionality, doesn't there?
When people are struggling, and they are, millions of people all over this country are struggling in the cost of living crisis, and they see this nation, along with lots of other nations, Western nations, handing vast amounts of money, vast amounts of valuable weapons to Kiev, to Zelensky. You know, we understand why. We sort of get it, but people have had enough. And what annoys me, it's not so much that we're doing this. I get that we have to an extent, do it. I suspect we're doing it too much, but we do have to do this. I get that. But what annoys me is that the body politic in Westminster start from Starmer downwards, as I say. You see them on telly, all the parties, the Ukraine. It's like almost, you know, you're not allowed into the House of Commons unless you wear your I Love Ukraine badge. Well, the people of Britain are pretty sick of this. And what they're sick of is this taking for granted by the body politic that we all support limitless generosity to Kiev, to Ukraine. And I'm telling you, people do not. People are sick of it. And what we would like is for our politicians to at least recognise that, but they don't. They sweep it under the carpet and they act like every single one of us absolutely and utterly supports any amount of money to be given to Ukraine, even though we're struggling. I'm here to tell you, Isabel, that's not true.
Indeed. You know, I actually am sometimes surprised by how many people I meet that are quite anti it, you know, you know, just feel that enough is enough. They're in no way Putin apologists. They think the man is an absolute monster, but they're pragmatic. And, you know, it's the old cliche, charity begins at home, that whole thing. You know, these are luxuries, aren't they? Or some would say they're luxuries. That's the case for not continuing with unlimited support. You know, if it were the only cause that we were contributing, the only overseas foreign aid, if you like, cause that we were contributing to, then maybe it would seem more reasonable. But we are so thinly stretched at the moment. Look at the state of our own armed forces. You know, I don't know. These are quite complex debates, aren't they? To what extent do you pour billions into the defense of Ukraine? Or maybe it's time that we put some of those billions into shoring up our own ability to protect our own borders. You know, I would have more respect for Keir Starmer with his apparently limitless generosity to any matters to do with Ukraine and Gaza, Palestine, and so on, if he was actually serious about protecting our own borders, the integrity of our own borders. You know, I don't think that, but Putin could be forgiven, let's put it that way, for having a bit of a wry smile about the idea that there should be no invasion of sovereign territory. If he was getting that lecture from Sir Keir Starmer, who allows sovereign Britain to be invaded pretty much on a daily basis by literally hundreds of migrants in peak boat crossing season.
Exactly right. And when he says, oh, it's good for Britain, He said for two reasons. He says it's good for Britain because if we join this Ukraine loan scheme, which of course we're going to, and we chuck in, say, 5 billion quid, which will probably be about our donation, if not more, then that'll be really good because it will endear us to the Brussels gang, to the EU. Yeah. That's what he's telling that to British people. Yeah. He's also saying it's good because it will create jobs. No. Giving away 5 billion quid with no real solid return is not good for Britain. It may be, you could argue it's necessary on the international stage, but don't go to Armenia, Starmer, and tell us that handing more billions of taxpayers' money to Kiev is good for Britain, because it just is not. That is a straight lie. Isabel, you're going to stay with us, so we'll go to break now. We'll be back in a minute to resume this conversation, so stay where you are, folks.
Starmer fueling anti-Semitism?
I don't think he's doing anything to deal with anti-Semitism. The attempt to gaslight the British people and the Jewish community is appalling.
This has to stop. It's almost being normalised, and it's terrifying, and we're sick of it. Enough's enough.
Don't be shocked, and don't you bloody dare claim to be shocked or upset or care about Jewish people being stabbed on the streets of our capital city in broad daylight. This is on you.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Isabel, I need to talk to you about the price of a pint in Britain in just a little while. Incredibly, it is now more than £10 in some bars. We'll talk about that in a second. But we need to talk about this interesting Reform UK policy. They are saying that come the next election, they will, if you like, punish constituencies that vote Green. So if constituencies prove themselves to be full of people who dislike borders, you know, and just want to let more and more people into the country, Reform UK will say, well, you know, you can experience what it's like when you let more and more people into the country. We will choose these green areas for where we build detention centres for the migrants who break into this country illegally before deporting them. Detention centres, not accommodation centres, detention centres around the country. I think this is an interesting policy. It's kind of funny. You do sort of think, well, if you're stupid enough to support that poisonous person, Zach Polensky, and his vile policies, then you deserve a detention centre on your doorstep. What worries me is, what about the loyal Reform supporters and voters who live in these green constituencies? Why should they be punished by this Reform policy? What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I wholly support the policy. That probably doesn't surprise you to know. I think that, you know, it's time that we deliver a message. Those of us that are on the side of this just can't go on as it is with these, with the situation of the illegal immigration crisis. I sort of hear what you're saying, but it's already the case that at a local level, people who voted differently to the local council makeup that they got are subjected to whatever that local council's dominant policies may be, and that can have a very, very real effect on how you live in a particular area. So just to keep it very simple, for example, if you live in an area such as mine, and which was for a long time it was a Tory area, and it's suddenly a Labour area, you may find that your local council takes a very different view on house building, and that affects local developments and so on. So it is already the case. None of us are immune from the political impact of who voted what. You know, in a sense, you're sort of saying this shouldn't happen at that level, but it already does happen at a local level.
I suppose you're right. I mean, you know, don't get me wrong. I mean, I think, you know, it's time to act tough. I sort of quite like the gist of this policy. But, you know, for example, in Gorton and Denton, you know, tens of thousands, it was a reasonably close run thing. You know, in another world, Reform UK could have easily have won that by-election. They came close. Tens of thousands of Reform UK supporters voted for Matt Goodwin up there. But they just got narrowly pipped to the post by Hannah Spencer and the Greens. Now, if the Reform UK turned round to those tens of thousands of loyal Reform supporters and said, well, you voted for us, but not enough did, so you're going to get a detention centre, I think a lot of those Reform supporters will say, well, F you.
That's how our democracy works. You know, just as many millions of people were upset that we left the EU, they were on the losing side of that referendum. You know, these can be huge things that are affected. You know, everybody in the country had to leave the EU, whether or not they voted to leave the EU. But I think what's more important here, actually, is the debate that this will trigger and the spotlight that it will shine on what the Green Party and, frankly, the Labour Party too actually stands for. And I think, you know, it's a way, isn't it, of really casting an unflinching glare on the policy agenda of the Green Party. And frankly, as I say, it's not much different to what the Labour Party are effectively imposing, you know, pretty much fluid borders at this point. So at the very least, no one's going to be left in any doubt, are they, in the run-up to an election, that if you vote Green, well, they're pretty keen on open borders. They want come one, come all, refugees welcome. Well, there's a good chance you'll get those in your constituency. So how about you just don't vote Green then?
Yes, and also I think the key word in the outlining of this policy is detention, as in detention centre, not accommodation centre. That's really the important thing, that migrant.
Yeah, because that means they're not roaming free. You know, this is a fundamental flaw in how this government is trying, or not really trying, and manifestly failing to control what's happening, to stop the boats. Because unless you detain people if they're illegal, if they come into our country illegally, unless you actually detain them like the vast majority of well-run countries do, then what hope have you got of ever actually controlling the situation? If people knew that the minute they set foot on British soil, if they had come in illegally, they would be put in a pretty unpleasant, not inhumane, but pretty unpleasant, no luxuries here, detention centre ahead of definite deportation, guess what? The boats would stop coming. It really isn't that complex to understand.
I'll tell you what you shouldn't get worked up about is this story that's obviously been pushed by Labour over the weekend. I was very circumspect right from the start. Suddenly this story appeared to say, migrant crossings of the Channel are plummeting because the people smugglers can't get their hands on the powerful outboard motors that they need. And I'm thinking, yeah, right. OK, let's see how this pans out. So this story was put up. This kind of came out around about Friday. That's when it emerged. I suspect it was the flames of this encouraging story were being fanned by the government. You see, our policies are starting to work. That was Friday. 55 illegal migrants came across the Channel on Friday. The following day, Saturday, bingo, 325 illegal migrants crossed the Channel unlawfully. And yesterday, the 3rd of May, 422 migrants crossed the Channel illegally. So hundreds and hundreds since Labour tried to persuade us that the lack of outboard motors was really taking its toll. Rubbish. Here they come, and still they come.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at this because when I first heard it, I actually didn't believe it. I just thought it's not credible. The actual figures are that it's down by a third so far from January to the end of April this year versus last year. That does actually stand up statistically, but I strongly suspect it's down to wind, waves, and weather than it is down to any kind of smashing of the gangs. We know that the demand for these crossings is greater than ever. We've seen this. There are people queuing up to get on these boats. The idea that somehow or other this is tapering off is utterly delusional. On the contrary, it's spreading down the coast, as we were reporting from Belgium. I think a true test of whether any of this government's policies have had any impact will only come at the end of this year. So we can compare year on year, not winter months on winter months. There's long periods where the weather was just too rough, too cold to come over, as there often is, there has been in previous years. So, yeah, I'm not buying into this really at all as a wider picture.
Nor am I. Watch this space, folks. The weather's been terrible on the Channel, often because of wind. You may have been in your local area, thought, it's quite nice, but as soon as it's windy, the Channel can turn into a very turbulent stretch of sea. So as the weather gets better, be careful, watch out. They will come. This summer will be bad. Now, one last question, very important, probably the most important question. High-end bars in London and around the country, for the first time, a pint of beer has topped £10, over £10 for a pint. Now, in America, politicians know two things. That there are two things you must never raise the price on. If you do, you will not be re-elected. And that is beer and petrol, or gas as they call it. Now, our politicians don't seem to understand those important maxims about beer and petrol. So now, for the first time in history, there are bars all over London and maybe around the country as well, where a pint of beer will cost you more than £10. That's extraordinary, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, I'm not a beer drinker, but that strikes me as absolutely obscene and will really trigger a lot of people because that just is, I mean, it's so much more than it should be, or feels as if it's so much more than it should be. And when you combine that with the figures on food inflation, I was just looking at that this morning. Food inflation up 50% over a 5-year period, expected to be within a pretty short space of time. This is crippling for people.
Yeah, it is. Nobody wants a £10 pint. I mean, I live in London, and I'm sort of used to these booze prices. I went to a bar not so long ago, and I ordered a glass of rosé wine, keeping it real, you know, because my blue-collar credentials to the fore. And they said, "Oh, we don't have the normal type. We've got this sort of, vintage type." I said, "Yeah, all right, I'll have a glass of that." In a pub, right? This is down by the Thames in Hammersmith. It was £24 for a glass of wine. So this is, I mean, it was a special kind. They didn't tell me until afterwards. They said, "You sure you want this anymore?" I said, "Yeah, go on then." But you know, booze prices will take their toll on an already very unpopular government, trust me. Isabel, fantastic to talk to you. Great stuff. Thank you for coming on Bank Holiday Monday. The great Isabel Oakeshott, Talks International editor. Let's go to break. When we come back, Peter Bleksley, former Met Police detective. That next. Stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. In the studio, it's the great former Met Police detective, Peter Bleksley. Welcome, Peter.
Good afternoon.
I want to talk to you about Matt Polansky and a man who would have been... Matt Polansky? Who's that? So that's Zach Polansky's brother, if he's got one. No, Zach Polansky, the Green Party leader, and also Sir Mark Rowley, the Met Police detective, who's really got stuck into this. As I'm talking, Pete, breaking news, a 46-year-old man and a 38-year-old woman have been arrested on suspicion of arson with intent to endanger life over a fire at a memorial wall in Golders Green on April the 27th. That was last week before the stabbings. So that was earlier in the week, an arson attack on a memorial wall which had tributes, among others, to the victims of October the 7th. So these people allegedly tried to set fire of it. They've been arrested. So the spectre, the vile spectre of anti-Semitism, Peter, continues apace in that part of London. Before we talk, let's take a look at Zach Polansky. He went on to Sky News yesterday, spoke to Trevor Phillips, trying to defend his position where he supported tweets which criticised those brave coppers for arresting the suspect in those stabbing cases. Here's Polansky.
I think you can both recognise the bravery of officers who run
towards incidents that most of us, including myself, would certainly want to run away from, and find the appropriate forum to say that no one, especially the police, should be above scrutiny. The reason why I've apologised is I accept that wasn't the appropriate forum. As a member of the London Assembly, a place I know you know well, the Police and Crime Committee would be an appropriate place, or indeed a meeting with the Commissioner, which I'm pleased I've reached out and he's now agreed to. I do also think, by the way, open letters aren't an appropriate way to do politics either in a local election, but I accept all of that and I'll be having that conversation with the Commissioner.
I don't know what the hell he's on about, but I think there he is doubling down on what he did on social media. He's not he did apologise for it, but now he seems to be saying, well, even if these coppers are brave, that doesn't mean to say they shouldn't be above scrutiny. So he reserves the right to criticise them. I suppose in some circumstances you could, but everybody knows they didn't put a foot wrong in that arrest, and in fact they were incredibly courageous. Now, he's got involved in this spat with Sir Mark Rowley, the Met Police chief, and Mark Rowley has written to him to say, listen, your nonsense criticising my coppers, my police officers who bravely tackled this lunatic. You are inflaming tensions in an area that is in a very febrile state. Zach Polanski is now saying, well, the police chief should never have written to me in public. It's as if to say, you should not criticise me, a party leader, before the local elections. What's he talking about?
Well, there's an irony there, isn't there, in that Polanski says the Commissioner of the Met Police should not write an open letter to him, and yet, of course, Polanski uses very open forums like social media to criticise people left, right and centre. Oh, the irony. Yeah. If only he realised what a fool he makes of himself. Yeah. I think, personally speaking, that he's an utter irrelevancy. Most of what tumbles out of his mouth is utter abject nonsense and drivel. And if I were the Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, which of course will never happen, I wouldn't have
unfortunately
I wouldn't have deigned to have written him an open letter, because I just think he is an irrelevancy. I understand Sir Mark Rowley's motivations behind it, because the core thrust of what Rowley was saying in that letter is that criticism from people like Polanski will impact upon police officers' willingness to use appropriate force. If they think they're going to use appropriate force but they'll be criticised for it, they might hold back. And of course, in a life or death situation, and I'm hypothesising here, to hold back, to hesitate, could be fatal. So he wants his officers supported in their actions so they feel confident in using reasonable, proportionate and necessary force as and when appropriate.
Yeah, good point. Now, this is against the backdrop of a big article in the Daily Mail on Saturday which reported, as a fact, he hasn't challenged it yet, that Zach Polanski, the 43-year-old leader of a national political party, on one social media site alone, Blue Sky, posts on average 100 times a day or more. 100 times a day or more. What else does he get? What else does he find time to do?
Not go to the dentist, I would suggest. Does he actually do any work? I mean, I have no idea if Mr. Polanski has ever had a relationship with illegal drugs or not. I've absolutely no idea. But it is rather astonishing that he's got the teeth of a crackhead. However,
he says he's never taken a drug in his life,
well, so
or had a drink, and I think that probably explains it.
Okay, well, yeah, he might have a bit of a sense of humour if he had. But anyway, please drink responsibly. He's an utter irrelevancy as I see it. And I've got children in their 20s, and they are mocking him. I think what's going to happen is the more oxygen and publicity he gets, the more people see him. Actually, people will eventually see through what an absolute pathetic clown he is. And that really is what he is. And to have said what he's said, or to repost comments in relation to police officers' use of force, when he sits on the Police and Crime Committee as a member of the London Assembly.
Actually, I hadn't thought that's frightening,
which just goes to show what the police are up against when they have elected people like that sitting on committees that are there to scrutinise. I mean, clearly he knows nothing about police force, the police use of force, and he's an idiot.
He's an idiot, but he's a dangerous idiot. You've just been to Golders Green, my part of the world.
Yes.
Now, the good people at Golders Green, I'm here to tell you, they are a mixture of frightened and furious. They are furious that this government does nothing to protect them. They're furious that the police do nothing to protect them, and they are frightened of the implications of that they are defenceless in extremely hostile times.
Yes, I've spent a few hours up there today. I'm going from Hendon to Finchley to Golders Green, and it's quite astonishing. When you go to Finchley, there's rows of Iranian shops, restaurants and such like, all displaying the Iranian flag. You cross over a set of traffic lights, you're in a predominantly Jewish area, and they are living side by side. That memorial to the thousands slaughtered by that despotic Iranian regime is, if people understand my describing it as such, it's a thing of beauty, in the same way that a cemetery, a war cemetery, can be a thing of beauty. Of course, born out of tragedy, born out of monstrous actions by a despotic regime. And to see these communities living side by side, often coagulating, living alongside each other, harmoniously, respectfully, peacefully, is really quite something. But I concur entirely with what you say about the Jewish community there, many of them who have absolutely every right to be deeply, deeply concerned. What I will say today, in the defence of the Metropolitan Police today, as I saw it, I saw a considerable number of Met Police officers, Met Police vehicles and British Transport Police at tube stations. So there clearly is an increased and very, very necessary police presence there at the moment.
I can personally confirm that. One last question, though. There was, incredibly, in my view, a big pro-Palestine march in Lewisham in southeast London on Saturday. I would have thought that was hardly a triumph of good timing, but there you are. There they were with all their jihad chanting and from the river to the sea. And once again, the police just stood there and looked at them. When are the Met Police going to learn? When is Rowley going to learn that what we want you to do, if they are to be allowed to have these demonstrations and these protests, I understand them being allowed, I get that, they must be policed properly. The cops must stop letting these people break the law.
I've forgotten how many times I've sat in this chair or contributed down the line talking about this subject ever since these pro-Palestinian marches started after the atrocity of October the 7th. And time again, myself, yourself, other presenters, other contributors, many people have gone, why aren't the police being more robust? Why aren't they arresting people for chanting globalise the Intifada, for chanting from the river to the sea? Clearly both unmistakably genocidal chants calling for the extinction of people of the Jewish faith. Without a doubt, hatred personified. Arrest these people. Be robust. Interfere. Use your snatch squads, for want of a better expression, to go into the crowd, drag them out, arrest them, charge them, get them in front of courts. I'm afraid the Metropolitan Police appeasement of these marches for so long has actually led us to the situation we're in now. And where are we now? Starmer's having a bit of a rethink. The Commissioner's having a bit of a rethink. If only they'd tuned in to talk all those years ago and listened to the likes of you and me, perhaps the penny would have dropped a lot earlier.
Yeah, just police these marches properly. They must be allowed, police them. They're not being policed, they're being observed by coppers who just watch people break the law. That's not acceptable, don't you think, folks? 03444991000. Big thanks to Peter Blexley, former Met Police detective. Fantastic stuff as always. Let's go to break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the veteran Coronation Street star, the fabulous actress Maureen Lipman, who is being pilloried by anti-Jewish campaigners. Absolutely outrageous. We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned.
Is Starmer fueling anti-Semitism?
I don't think he's doing anything to deal with anti-Semitism. The attempt to gaslight the British people and the Jewish community is appalling.
This has to stop. It's almost being normalised, and it's terrifying, and we're sick of it. Enough's enough.
Don't be shocked, and don't you bloody dare claim to be shocked or upset or care about Jewish people being stabbed on the streets of our capital city in broad daylight. This is on you.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Breaking news over in Germany. Several people have been injured, according to reports, in a car ramming in Leipzig. That's Radio Leipzig reporting that one of these car rammings into crowds of pedestrians, people injured. We know nothing more than that, but you can understand why we are apprehensive. We'll bring you details on that story as it emerges, as we get updates, so stay tuned for that. Let's go straight over now to journalist Nicole Lampert about our next story. Welcome, Nicole.
Hi, Kevin.
Now, I haven't got too long to do this, but it's a shocking story in my view. This is about the veteran actress, the very great actress. Some people call her Coronation Street star, which she is, but she's a lot more than that. She is Dame Maureen Lipman, a living legend. She's an actress who happens to be Jewish, and she does talk up about Jewish and Israeli issues. But I wouldn't say she's particularly in your face about that kind of stuff. Anyway, she's going on a national theatre tour, starring in a play called Allegra. Allegra is a very harmless, light-hearted, almost comedy play about a woman who is relentlessly upbeat and joyful to the extent that she drives everybody crazy. She's so happy all the time that she constantly bursts into song. That's what this play is about. So it's not political or anything like that. She is due to appear at His Majesty's Theatre in Aberdeen from Tuesday, May the 26th to Saturday, May the 30th. What is that, a 4-day run? Campaigners have launched a serious protest trying to get her banned from that theatre. They've released graphics. There they are. Don't platform racists. I don't know why they're saying she's a racist, but they are. There she is dressed up as the devil. Tell Aberdeen Performing Arts to cancel Maureen Lipman's upcoming performance in Allegra. The only reason they're trying to cancel her, Nicole, is, like you, she's Jewish. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, there's an irony that they're saying don't platform racist when that is a racist image that they're showing. For hundreds of years, there was this idea that Jews were the devil, and even Michelangelo's statue of Moses had little horns on it. And even people within my own lifetime and yours, Kevin, were asked, when Jewish people in Britain went to university, they were asked to show people their horns. That's how that particular trope has continued down the decades and centuries. So there's just that. Then there is the fact that she's a British Jew, she's not Israeli, she should be allowed to have her opinions without people trying to cancel her. And this just, I was listening to your conversation with Peter earlier, and this just all adds to the same thing, which is we are allowing anti-Semitism to run riot in this country. Our political leaders are doing so little, and from singing "For the River to the Sea" and calling for intifada everywhere to doing this to a Jewish national treasure simply because she's Jewish.
Who's, by the way, now she's 80 years old. She's an octogenarian. Now, she's a very formidable lady. I've met her a few times. Very impressive lady. Great actress, of course. But she shouldn't be subjected to this. This should be illegal. This is racism. This is anti-Semitism. This is pure, palpable Jew hatred. I would have thought that's against our laws. Why aren't the authorities finding the people responsible for this poster, for this campaign, and feeling their collar, nicking them, arresting them? Why not?
I wish I knew. I wish there was an answer to this, but the fact is that there is this permissive attitude towards anti-Semitism. And as it is, we've already seen other Jewish acts being banished from performing, whether they're musicians or comedians, and now actors. And so this is not only frightening for Maureen and other Jewish actors that I know who have had to hire security. And very soon after October 7, I listened to Maureen, who was on stage, talking about how Coronation Street had hired security for her. This is just trying to stop anyone hiring Jews to come on stage for them, to make it not worth their while. This is about basically trying to ban Jews from public life.
It's not good enough, and leave Maureen Lipman alone. And this anti-Semitism, this is blatant anti-Semitism. It should be outlawed. The police should act. Nicole, good to have you on the show. Thank you so much. Next up, it's Robert Bates. Stay where you are.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. We are trying to open links with Leipzig, with Germany, to try and find out exactly what's been going on there. But just before the news, I reported breaking news. There's been one of these car rammings in a crowded area in Leipzig in Germany. We now understand that 2 people have been killed in that incident. You know what we're thinking here. Is it another one of these terrorist car rammings that have happened so often across the continent? So we're trying to get details, but it does seem to be escalating. So we'll keep you updated with whatever the hell has gone on in Leipzig. But it looks as if there's been one of these maniac terrorists has driven into a crowd and no doubt injured people, but it looks as if they have killed 2. So major story unfolding, developing in Germany. We'll keep you updated. We're trying to find out exactly what has happened. Let's go over to our next guest. He is the director of the research director at the Centre for Migration Control, Robert Bates. Welcome, Robert.
Evening, Kevin. Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure. First of all, your thoughts. As I said earlier in the show, in my monologue, one thing we know, that when the chips are down, when domestic strife is rife here in Britain, our Prime Minister will, sure as night follows day, hop on a plane and fly abroad to escape the flak. So he will go somewhere where they'll take him mildly seriously, because we no longer take him seriously here. He's gone to Armenia to take part in an EU summit at which he's going to beg for our Brussels gang friends to let us rejoin the single market. They've already indicated they're prepared for us to do that. Keir was thrilled. This was a couple of months ago. He was less than thrilled when he found out a week later that us rejoining the single market would entail a cost of £1 billion a year. So this leader of ours is preparing to sell off another £1 billion of taxpayers' money to rejoin a single market that taxpayers, the British citizens, voted to leave. He no longer cares about the citizens of this country. He's just trying to appease the left-wingers in his own party, his left-wing MPs, because they're the ones whose support he needs to keep his job as Prime Minister. He doesn't give a damn what we think. He's just playing to the left-wing Labour crowd.
Yeah, I don't think it's just a cold political calculation from this very cynical Prime Minister, though. I think actually this is where his heart lies anyway. I mean, let's not forget this was the shadow Brexit secretary that was obsessed with a second referendum and obsessed with keeping us close to the EU, even just in the aftermath of the Brexit referendum. So this is no doubt something that has been on his mind and on his wish list for a very long period of time. I think he's hoping to use the sort of geopolitical turmoil, whether it be in Ukraine or whether it be in Iran, as a kind of pretext to hoist us into a institution that we very, very emphatically voted to leave in 2016, and then compounded that vote in 2019 when we voted for the Conservative Party. And I think, unfortunately, he has inherited a Brexit deal that was pretty much botched by the Conservatives. They didn't do anywhere near enough to take us away from Europe, and therefore actually dragging us back into this undemocratic, bureaucratic bloc by stealth is available to him as an option. I do think the blame for that lies with the Conservative government. But of course, this is something that is overwhelmingly supported by Labour backbenchers. I think this is overwhelmingly supported probably by a majority of Labour members as well. So it's something where he's not actually going to, for once, face much resistance from his own parliamentary party. I think actually what this probably will end up doing, though, and it will end up backfiring, is I think this will reopen a war that is only going to cause Labour long-term harm, because, of course, most people remember very, very clearly their attempts to hamstring us during the 2017 to 2019 period. And I think, actually, if he thinks things have changed dramatically and the British people are just going to roll over and accept being dragged back into a super state, then he's got another thing coming, because, you know, whilst the polls might suggest that actually people are more ambivalent to this, I think when they sort of become alert and aware as to what's really happening and going on, the Labour Party are going to be punished. It might sort of have a few short-term benefits for him, but long-term, this is going to be a huge, huge misstep.
Yeah, well, the short-term benefits are obvious. He's not playing to the big crowd, as in British citizens. voters. He's playing to the small crowd, as in far left Labour MPs and Labour Party members whose support he needs to hang on to his job, to save his own sorry backside. That's why he's doing this. They want us to rejoin, so he's basically saying, I'm going to do that. What he has said when arriving in Armenia, we'll play you the footage in a little while. He's saying that that handing £1 billion a year to Brussels is a really good investment because closer links with the EU are good for Britain. That's not what we voted for. We certainly didn't vote for him to just keep pouring money into the Brussels money pit, which is what he seems to be doing. And the other thing he wants to commit a fair few billion quid of our money to is the new EU-Ukraine loan system, whereby the EU loan for Zelensky and Ukraine a loan of, I think it's £75 billion or some 95 billion euros if you convert it. This is a loan scheme. This will cost us a fair few, at least 5 billion, if not more, I would suggest. Again, he's saying this is really good for Britain because it will create industry, because we need to build things for Ukraine. And a healthy Ukraine is good for us. He's justifying us giving billions of pounds of taxpayers' money to Zelensky in Kiev because he says it's good for Britain. Well, giving billions of pounds of our money to another country with nothing in return, that is not good for this country. It's certainly not good for the millions of citizens who are struggling in the cost of living crisis. They look at this constant handing of massive amounts of money and weapons to Ukraine and they think, what about us? Starmer, the Labour Party, Westminster politicians in general with their little Ukraine badges, they think we're all four square behind handing billions and billions and billions of pounds forever to Ukraine. I don't think the British people are four square behind that. Do you?
Not when they have to pay the bills. No, I think in particular, and I think actually, you know, even if we are going to be giving money to Ukraine, doing it under the auspices of a European super bloc, actually, we don't get anything from that because we don't get any goodwill. We don't get anything from that because it's the EU that is directing the funds towards them. And it's the same with aid when we used to throw billions into the EU's aid pot. We didn't get any goodwill from that either. So if he was going to insist that we throw taxpayers' money at Ukraine, the very least he should be doing it is bilaterally. And what he's also missed in this this conversation is the very fact that Britain's aerospace sector is by far and away the most competent in Europe, and actually having to pay for us to access the ability to support Ukraine is really doing down and misunderstanding just how strong we actually are in that sector. And, you know, going to the deal he's looking like we're drifting towards, where we pay £1 billion to take rules. That's vassalage, effectively. And this is a similar situation to the one that Theresa May was proposing, which was unanimously derided from Remainers and Leavers as being something that is in no way compatible with democracy. But unfortunately, again, as you've hinted at, this is a Prime Minister that domestically is on the floor, is absolutely rock bottom. And therefore, what he's wheeling out is this tried and tested method that statesmen use, where they go onto the international stage and try and grandstand and maybe desperately try and find a place for themselves in the history books for something, because they know full well that actually having to address any issues at home would be far too difficult. You know, even modest things like getting through welfare reform, this Prime Minister has failed at. It's U-turn after U-turn. On the international stage, he's able to pretend that he's some kind of competent diplomat. He's an individual with a plan to solve the world's crises. In reality, no, he's not. And his only solutions seem to be signing Brits up to pay billions of pounds more for wars that you probably are right that, you know, not many people in this country now have in their top 5-10 issues the conflict in Ukraine. I think it is being misrepresented just how much actually the British public support huge support going to Ukraine. I think actually, you know, especially since 2022, it is waned dramatically, and actually now it's more of a kind of an afterthought or a side issue more than anything in any way determines people's views on the world.
I think if you ask millions of Brits around the country who are struggling in the cost of living crisis, would you prefer that these billions of pounds of taxpayers' money that Keir Starmer keeps giving to Zelensky, would you prefer him to spend it on us, on you, on the British people? They would all say yes. And yet, every bloody MP, doesn't matter what party they're in, they all go on telly with their little Ukraine flag badges, assuming that we are all absolutely, unhesitatingly foursquare behind the continuing generosity to Ukraine. I get why we do it. I understand the geopolitics of it. We've got to allow or give Ukraine the mechanism to fight Putin successfully, to hold him back. We've got to do that. I do get that. But I think what is so irritating, so annoying, is that the body politic, all those boys and girls in the Westminster bubble gang, they just do not get, they do not remotely understand that millions of us, we got questions. How much longer are you going to give billions and billions and billions of pounds to another country when we could do with it? How much longer are you going to carry on like this? The eradicating of that line of questioning, which is what we want, is an affront to democracy. It really is.
And it happened really early on, of course. You know, flags from government department buildings, flags above council buildings. It kind of, the Ukraine cause caught the same kind of virulent virtue signaling strain that we've seen with LGBT or BLM and so forth. But it seems to become incredibly entrenched in just a kind of non-questionable matter of fact that billions of pounds do have to go to Ukraine. And of course, it's not politicians that are having to pay for this support. It's not sort of those mandarins, it's not those civil servants. For them, it's just numbers on a spreadsheet, and they can throw it whichever way they want. And I think, unfortunately, this is actually now where British politics is. You've got a sort of millions of people that are working their hand to the bone, paying their taxes, and then you've got a political class that actually treat the apparatus of state as their own plaything to do with whatever pet cause takes their fancy in any given month. And it really exemplifies, I think, the disconnect between the people of this country and the people that govern this country, because they're not on the same page at this point now. Because you rightly point out, if they were on the same page, we'd have politicians actually spending billions in this country rather than throwing it away at any given opportunity that they seem to get. Because it's every week we seem to hear, another billion going towards X, another billion going towards Y. It's never another billion going towards repairing the blooming potholes or actually improving the lot of people in this country, bringing down waiting lists and so forth. And I think, unfortunately, now we have people that don't govern or enter politics to actually be on the side of British people. It's now a platform for them to pursue their own hobby horses.
Yeah, go to Westminster, go around Parliament now, go to the bars. You'll see like all these MPs and SPADs and political workers. They've all got their I love Ukraine badges on their lapels and everything. Go around the country. Move among normal people. You won't see any at all. There's a serious divide here, and I think a reckoning is coming in that area, but that may well be in the future. Meanwhile, let's talk about Starmer's own personal problems, shall we? Because while he's away in Armenia, the challenges to his leadership continue apace. Now, he's saying in interviews over the weekend, incredibly, I'll fight off any challenge. It does actually seem as if he is digging his heels in, that he will not go, even though we are hearing that at least 7 cabinet secretaries are saying to him, maybe you should think about it. Come the local elections, the results will be terrible for Labour, possible loss of 1,900 seats or something ludicrous like that, absolute world record losses. On Friday, you should think about your future. Maybe think about throwing in the towel, resigning, leaving it to someone else. Apparently, he's digging his heels in. No, I will fight off any challenger. Those challengers include, I'm told, in pole position, Andy Burnham, who has got himself a seat sorted out and he reckons can be in Parliament within weeks. Wes Streeting, of course, the Health Secretary, who we're told has the requisite number of parliamentary Labour supporters, over 81, so he's ready to roll. And of course Angela Rayner, who's got her stamp duty problems, but we keep being told they're close to resolution, so she's ready to fire as well. All of these people ganging up on Keir Starmer. He's acting like, oh, it's nothing, it's nothing. Well, it is something. I mean, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that this time next week, Robert, you and I could be sitting here talking about our new Prime Minister. This guy's in a lot of trouble, whatever they say.
And the problem for the Labour Party is voters will be getting deja vu of the same psychodramas that actually really brought down the Conservative Party. Of course, it was the defenestration of a succession of prime ministers where voters in 2024 just went, this is kind of a bit ridiculous now. And it was actually sort of Tory secretaries of state's egos driving them into this factional warfare endlessly. But if you think the Tories have egos, just wait until you encounter these chaps on the Labour side of things, because these really are full of the bull and their own self-esteem and importance. And, the list of individuals you've just gone through, I think actually probably the one that is most likely to have any difference and impact on Labour polling is Andy Burnham, who of course is locked out of Parliament at the moment. And the idea that he's just going to be able to waltz in after having got a Greater Manchester MP to give up his seat, I think is pie in the sky, really, because he's going to face a pretty stiff competition from the Islamist Green Party, effectively, who we saw in Gorton and Denton were very, very good at playing into those division and divisive politics that caused Labour to come a scupper. So I don't think in any way, actually, we will see when Keir Starmer does inevitably go, and I do think it is inevitable now, that whoever comes in after him is going to bring the stability and sensible head to governance that this country is definitely crying out for. Because whilst these egomaniacs are scrapping amongst themselves and playing politics, it's people up and down the country that are suffering with record taxes and just a general creaking of productivity in the country, and actually now feeling like a very depressing place to live. So whilst they sort of go around the bars and have cocktail parties and schmooze one another, it's us out here in the country that are suffering. And I think voters won't very easily forgive a Labour Party that descends into the same chaos that enveloped the Tories in the latter half of their time in government.
People I know who've been on the local election trail campaigning, knocking on doors, tell me that there's not very much mention of Mandelson. People are not particularly energised by the drama, the psychodrama surrounding Lord Mandelson and the ambassadorship to the United States. But what they are energised about, what they do recognise when they see one, is a lame duck Prime Minister. They see him as at the end of his rope, that he has no power, that he is ineffective, that he's useless, that he's incompetent, that he's a lame duck, and they want him gone. And people in Labour, the brains of the operation, as it were, they know that if they're to stand any chance at all at the next election, which is a long shot anyway, Starmer can't be the Prime Minister going into the general election. He can't be, for their sake. So you're right, Robert, he does have to go, but let's see when. You're going to stay with us, so we'll discuss some more big stories, including the cost of a pint, the price of a pint going up to more than £10 a time. £10 a pint, more than £10 for a pint of beer. I remember years ago, right, when I was a little local reporter, I went for a pint in a pub in a place called Chertsey in Surrey. It's near where I was brought up, and it was more than £1. And I sold that story to the Sunday Mirror. They put it all over the front page. The first £1 for a pint. That was really, that was in the 1980s. That was really shocking. £1 a pint. It's now £10 a pint. We need to talk about that, don't we? Cheers. See you in a minute.
arm of fueling anti-Semitism?
I don't think he's doing anything to deal with anti-Semitism. The attempt to gaslight the British people and the Jewish community is appalling.
This has to stop. It's almost being normalised, and it's terrifying, and we're sick of it. Enough's enough.
Don't be shocked, and don't you bloody dare claim to be shocked or upset or care about Jewish people being stabbed on the streets of our capital city in broad daylight. This is on you.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Still with Robert Bates from the Centre for Migration Control. Before we go back to Robert, just an update on what's going on in Leipzig. There has been one of these horror rammings that a car has driven into a crowded shopping area of Leipzig, right near the market square. So it's a major shopping conurbation, as it were. There's Leipzig there. We've got pictures of what's going on there. It's a four-wheeler, an SUV, a Volkswagen, is understood to have sped through the crowd. Funnily enough, strangely, there was someone on top of the car, apparently, as it was doing this. It has ploughed into a very crowded area. There are multiple injuries, we're being told, and 2 are feared dead. So we're getting very scant details, but we're hoping to get in touch with a reporter on the scene, or at least in Germany, who will bring us up to date with exactly what is going on as soon as we can. But it looks for all the world as if there's been another one of these terrible car rammings where they drive into a crowded car area, shopping area, pedestrian area as an act of terrorism. That's what it looks like. A Volkswagen CUV with a person on top of the building speeding through a pedestrian zone in Leipzig. That's being reported by Radio Leipzig. Sky News reporting that 2 are dead. So, as I say, I hope fairly soon we're going to go over to Germany and bring you what details we can with a serious update on this developing news story. So, 2 dead, we fear, in Leipzig after a car ramming. That will keep you abreast of all developments. Let's go back to Robert Bates. Robert, your thoughts, if you will, on the fact that this is an important story. Politically, this is very important. In several places in London now, a pint of beer will cost you more than £10. So we've reached the era of the £10 pint. I was just saying, I can remember the shock and consternation across the nation when the price of a pint went above £1. It's now just gone above £10. There are several bars, particularly or admittedly upscale bars in London, where a pint of lager, a pint of beer will cost you more than 10 quid. That is not good news for a government trying to keep a handle on the cost of living crisis.
No, it's not. But of course, it's this government that has made things a lot worse, with employer contributions for NI going up, with business rates, so forth. And I think in general, this news story is just indicative of the general puritanical governance that we have seen in this country for several decades now. You know, this idea of people being allowed to have fun in kind of unregulated areas like pubs and sort of cut loose is something that's been greatly frowned on, that those that actually call the shots. And really, actually, I think sadly, there seems to be no politician that actually is on the side of fun. You know, this idea actually that the Tories introduced of a smoking ban for those that were born after 2008. Again, where is the kind of live and let live mindset here that actually has been the cornerstone of this country? And I think pubs, you know, every pub is a parliament. It's where people get together, converse and have a bit of a chin wag and sort things out themselves. And I think, sadly, it's becoming more of a luxury. And I don't think it should be a luxury. I think it should just be a cornerstone of a community. It should be one of those places that people almost just congregate naturally towards. And unfortunately, it's not just the £10 pints in London. It's rural pubs across the country where, you know, rules about drink driving and reducing the limit even further and making them less economically viable. It's the general clamping down and regulation that we're hearing of bartenders having to sort of keep an eye on people's speech and so forth. And the whole sense is that we're now in a nanny state where actually there is no sort of untrammeled territory. There's no free terrain anymore to just sort of be yourself and have a bit of a japes. And to be honest, this doesn't really surprise me that we've now hit this point, because just the general sense of this country not embracing its legacy, its institutions and its heritage is now so widespread that actually I can see the situation getting even worse, and politicians never actually taking any of the drastic measures that they need to, such as sort of reducing the amount of tax that you have to pay per pint, because actually it's just an inconvenience for the plebs. It's not something that affects those that get their taxpayer-funded pints in Westminster pubs, is it?
No, it's not. And, you know, for generations now, politicians have taken it as read. It's their default setting. If in tax need, tax people's pleasures, tax beer, tax smoking, tax petrol for your car, all of this. If it amounts to pleasure, the fun police from Labour are after you. In fact, the Tories are almost as bad. So I think somewhere down the line they've got to, it's another assumption they have, politicians, that it's always okay to put the duty up, to put the tax up on smoking and drinking. Well, I'm not sure it is. You know, I've got a text here from Simon who said it's £1 a cigarette now, forcing us all to live a better lifestyle. You know, people are sick of this. They really, really are. Another mad policy I want to get your take on before you go, Robert. 600,000 households in this country, 600 UK households are now raking in more than £32,000 a year in benefits and welfare. £32,000 a year. The reason I mention that is £32,000 a year is the average income of working people with jobs. So 600,000 households are getting more money in welfare than people who work in jobs. That is sick at heart. That will never, ever improve this country, will it?
No, and actually the welfare state, you can follow the consequences of it and link them pretty much to most of the malaise that are gripping the UK economy, the lack of productivity, the lack of innovation. It all comes back to the fact that to fund this, we are having to actually go after the most entrepreneurial, those that are taking the risks. And, you know, I think the fact that we are now paying more in welfare than we are taking in income tax is a shocking statistic, which really indicates that, you know, we're no longer a nation of shopkeepers. We're effectively a nation of shirkers and chances, and unfortunately those that are able to work their way around the system. I think there is an urgent need for reform. It's not something that the Labour Party are going to be able to go anywhere near, because they know where their voter base is. And I also think it's worth noting that these statistics produced by the Tories do show huge discrepancies between different sections of society in terms of their likelihood to be claiming huge amounts of money. I think it's about 1 in 8 Bangladeshis households are claiming more than £30,000 in welfare. That's a ludicrous state of affairs. And, you know, of course, the foreign national and the migrant element of the benefit crisis is only a part of it. But I do think actually it's indicative that it's been allowed to exist and explode to such an extent. The sheer hesitancy that there is to actually towards confronting welfare head on, because of course it's very easy to shroud this situation in humanistic language and about its essential nature, and to make it seem like taking it away is inhumane. But actually we have to balance the books, because this country is going down the Swanee very, very quickly, and it is going to have to be incumbent on whoever comes in 2029 to take some of those tough decisions and to break some of the orthodoxies that have been far too prevalent for too long. And actually, they might end up losing support as a result of it. But if they were to actually care about this country and its future, they would have to take those decisions.
Well said, Rob. Always good to have you on the show. Thank you so much. Robert Bates there, Research Director for the Centre for Migration Control. Let me know this welfare situation in this country is out of control, isn't it? 600,000 households pulling in more than £32,000 a year in welfare and benefits, paid for by you and I, by taxpayers. They are earning they are pulling in more money than the average worker earns in their job. So the average income for working people with jobs is £32,000 a year. 600,000 households are getting more than that in welfare, not having jobs. That's just sick, isn't it? That is a blueprint to create a disastrous country. 0344 499 1000. Also, your thoughts on the fact, it's happening all over London already, but trust me, it's coming soon to a pub near you. The advent of the £10 pint. Did you ever think you'd see that? Will you pay £10 for a pint of beer? 0344 499 1000. Let's go to break. When we come back, we're going to talk about trigger warnings. You know, when they say, don't read Jane Austen because it may traumatise you, that kind of nonsense, absolute claptrap. Trigger warnings, warning us not to be, that Romeo and Juliet contains scenes of romance, that kind of nonsense, infantilizing nonsense that insults our intelligence. So much so that I don't usually do these stories anymore because there's too many of them. Every day in every way there's another stupid one, Well, this one, though, we're going to cover because it beats, it takes the biscuit. This possibly the stupidest trigger warning of all time. It's the Royal Shakespeare Company. They've got a play on right now. It's about Adolf Hitler and the Nazis. It's got a trigger warning saying, warning may include scenes depicting Nazis. Well, yeah, kind of wouldn't it, really? I mean, just ridiculous. We're going to talk about that next. Let me know what you think. 0344 499 1000. Stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. We're going to talk about this play by the Royal Shakespeare Company getting a trigger warning. It's about the Nazis. It warns you that it's got Nazis in it. The most stupid trigger warning ever. We'll talk about that in just a second. But we've got a hold of a journalist in Germany, German-based journalist, Rob Hyde, who's going to bring us up to speed on what the hell's going on in Leipzig. Rob, thanks so much for finding the time to talk to us. What's your understanding of exactly what's happening? We're hearing that that 2 are dead and that some kind of four-wheeler ploughed through the ground, through the crowd near the market square, possibly a Volkswagen, oddly with somebody on top of the vehicle, but multiple injuries and maybe 2 deaths. What's the latest, Rob?
Well, yes to all of that. Things are coming out all the time, and there's an awful lot of sort of speculation and buzzing around on social media. And as always, the German authorities are being notoriously tight-lipped. But the basics are, as you said, so there was a car which ploughed into pedestrians in central Leipzig this afternoon, and of course it's got an eerie, sort of chilling reminder of other incidents in Germany where you've had vehicles ploughing in. You've got the 2016 attack in Berlin at the Christmas market, for example, or in Magdeburg, which was 2024. So again, a vehicle ploughed into pedestrians in the city centre. It was on a street called Grimische Straße. It's a busy pedestrian shopping area. 2 people, as you rightly said, killed. At least 2 people seriously injured. These figures seem to be going up, and you'll have to be monitoring these. Now, police, they're saying very little, but they have officially classed this as a mass casualty incident, indicating a larger number of overall injured. So again, we'll have to be watching those statistics. It was near the Leipzig University. It was near the Nikolaskirche, the church. So it's really right in the center, as with other attacks we've had. And the suspect has been arrested. Unfortunately, we're not getting many details other than he was reported as having been psychologically, disturbed at the time of arrest.
A lot of people are, but no classification yet of terrorism or anything like that. Too early in the day for that sort of thing.
Yes, I mean it's difficult, because even when you've had situations where you have had similar attacks, and you've had people killed, and it's people who have come here and were declared Islamists and this type of thing, even at these situations, there's been an awful lot of reluctance to use those type of terms. So for the moment, no.
Rob, thanks for that update. Perhaps we'll get in touch with you later on in the show, because this is a developing news story that I'm sure is keeping you busy. But thank you so much for your time. Hopefully we'll talk a little later. Rob Hybe there, freelance journalist based in Germany, writes for The Times, among other publications, but stating that the German police are classifying this Leipzig incident, a car ramming into the crowd in the shopping heart of Leipzig, as a mass casualty incident, but no terrorism classification yet. We'll keep you posted on that, but obviously there are fears that this is a repeat of these other similar incidents that we've seen in Germany in the past, these terrorist incidents whereby cars are used as weapons of destruction, weapons of murder. We'll keep you updated on that story. Right, let's go over now straight away to the senior fellow at the New Culture Forum, Philip Kisley. Hello, Philip.
Hi, Kev. It's great to see you again.
Good to see you. Always a pleasure. I want to get you on this. I think this might well be the most ridiculous trigger warning yet. The Royal Shakespeare Company is staging the Bertolt Brecht play, The Resistible Rise of Arturo Ui. Now, Arturo Ui is a sort of pastiche for Hitler. It's a satire about the rise of a tyrannical right-wing maniac. So there are trigger warnings. The Royal Shakespeare Company's put this on. The production is called A Triumph. But there are trigger warnings saying that it may contain scenes containing Nazis, and may include xenophobic and ableist language. I mean, we don't need this kind of trigger warning. This is a play essentially about Adolf Hitler and the Nazis, and they're warning us that there may be references to the Nazis. It's
Yeah.
it's like putting on, as I said in my monologue, it's like putting on a production of Romeo and Juliet and warning the audience that in this play Romeo and Juliet might crop up. This infantilizes us. This treats us as children and insults our intelligence. When is it going to stop?
It's not going to stop, Kev. It's. I'm sorry to say this. I'm sorry to inform the viewers. It's only going to get worse. Just as you were saying that and reading that, I had a flashback to the 1970s, and my action man. I had a German uniform for my action man. Now there should have been a trigger warning on that, you know. And I was 7 at the time, but I managed to deal with it. The people in these theatres are going to be green voting Corbynistas to a man, to a they them. You know, these are the only people that go to theatres these days, and they will have trigger warnings about Nazis. And yet, in British streets at the moment, synagogues are being rammed, Jews are being attacked and killed, and there are arson attacks on Jewish charities. Yet these people, the chattering classes, will easily frame that as anti-Zionism and sleep at night, and yet they're confronted with the real thing here is that it's not the Nazis, it's the xenophobia. That's what's part of the trigger warning. They're confronted with xenophobia, and they will just have a meltdown. Bearing in mind that a lot of these people will have been on hate marches chanting from the river to the sea as well. It's really stupid. It's ridiculous. It's part of this mindset that is just so divorced from reality. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, this is a satire, folks.
Yeah.
This is a satire on Hitler. This is a satire on how these right-wing, far-right tyrannical dictators rise to power. So there's a trigger warning, part of the many trigger warnings that you'll get if you go and see this RSC production. I'm afraid I have to warn you, as the RSC is warning you, that this satire, this play about the rise of Hitler, may contain direct references to Nazism, and worse still, Philip, brace yourself. If you go to see this play, the RSC are going to warn you that you may encounter the representation of far-right ideology.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. I mean, it is just ridiculous. You might as well listen. I mean, if they're going to do this, right, they might as well put a trigger warning on the producers. You know, it's exactly the same thing. It's a satire about Nazi Germany.
Yeah.
It is just so stupid, but it really isn't. They're doing more, aren't they? You know, it's about far right ideology. It's about it. They're trying to kind of suggest that all of this stuff is going on in Britain. It is going on in Britain, but it's not in the way that they think. They are trying to kind of demonize the kind of right of centre politics in Britain, aren't they? And they're trying to connect it to Nazis. Yeah. I think that's what's going on. And that word xenophobia and the word far right there displays them for what they are. I mean, you know, I've been involved in drama and theatre and God knows what for the last 30 years. I know how their minds work, and I know what this really is about, and it's precisely what I've said. They're trying, you know, they hate the British people, they hate right of centre politics, yet they are completely blind to the anti-Semitism. I mean, I can't remember who it was a comedian who said, you know, if Hitler was alive today, you know, he would join the Green Party because he was an anti-Semite and he blamed all his problems on billionaires. You know what I mean? They are completely blind to their own shortcomings when it comes to racism and stupidity. And this is just a really clear example. But we're going to get far. I mean, there was another one as well I'd written down. There was a misogynoir.
Misogynoir, yeah, that's
on another one.
That's an attack on black females. Misogynoir.
An attack on black females. So this would send people into a tailspin. But the people in the tailspin would be exactly the kind of person, and this is the point I'm trying to make, exactly the kind of person that would be perfectly okay with biological males in women's toilets. So it really doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? It's this. They are hypocritical. They are, you know. The level of delusion is off the scale. So my advice is just don't bother going to the theatre. It's not worth it.
And why is it that the RSC would... I mean, I understand if these plays, these theatre producers, these theatres want to warn audiences there are scenes of explicit sex or there are scenes of violence. I get that. Why is it that the RSC feels it necessary to warn us that we may encounter, and what they mean by may encounter, they mean will encounter, the representation of far-right ideology, or indeed, why do they feel they have to warn us that there are direct references to Nazism? You know, we can take this. Why are we being warned about this?
Well, on one, it works on several levels, doesn't it? So on one level, it's the infantilization of everything, isn't it? You know, we are treated like delicate little petals who cannot, you know, I was thinking, you know, what was the great documentary called? World at War, you know? So it's like, you mustn't watch that or else you will be...
warning, there are scenes of war.
There are scenes of war in World at War. You know, we could go on forever with this, couldn't we? You know, we're not... And if you think about how great that documentary series was, and many viewers will have seen it, it's a triumph of television because it's serious and it doesn't expect the viewer to act like a 12-year-old, whereas theatre, television and film now does precisely that. It assumes that you're, one, really unstable, and two, completely stupid. And the content of this stuff reflects that assumption. And what we have here is the added deliciousness for them. It's about, oh God, we could really have a go at the far right here.
That's right, yeah.
And what they're saying is, oh, the far right is so traumatic for people in this country. That's really what they're saying. It's not about the past. It's not about Nazis. It's not about historical wrongdoing. It's about now, and it's about Britain. And if you want to be really, really clear, it's about the big parties on the right of
Yeah, they are. What they're doing at the RSC is they are signalling their own virtue when it comes to their horror of far-right ideology, of right-wing politics. Oh, we need to put forward warnings if there's right-wing politics in our plays, because we're not like that. That's what this crap is all about. Absolute ridiculous. It insults our intelligence, as you say, Philip, and it infantilizes us. Unbelievable. Philip, we'll talk to you, I believe, tomorrow. I hope so. Looking forward to that. Philip Kisley there, Senior Fellow at the New Culture Forum, who I believe will join us tomorrow at 4 o'clock for the big story roundup. So all of that to come tomorrow. But next up, it's Sean Costis from The Sun with the latest on the sports scene. All of that next. Stick around.
Starmer fueling anti-Semitism?
I don't think he's doing anything to deal with anti-Semitism. The attempt to gaslight the British people and the Jewish community is appalling.
This has to stop. It's almost being normalised, and it's terrifying, and we're sick of it. Enough's enough.
Don't be shocked, and don't you bloody dare claim to be shocked or upset or care about Jewish people being stabbed on the streets of our capital city in broad daylight. This is on you.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Sean Custis from Sunsport is in the studio. Busy weekend of football. What are the headlines? What's the best story?
Well, the headlines really come so far today was Chelsea and Nottingham Forest, which was an amazing game. Forest put out what was pretty much a B team because they've got the Europa League semi-final in the week and easily beat Chelsea 3-1.
They were 2-0 up in about 20 minutes, weren't they?
And Chelsea's goal came right at the end. Very good.
Brilliant
Pedro,
goal.
but it's 3-1. And there were two absolutely horrific head clashes in the game. A young lad called Jesse Derry making his senior start for Chelsea, 18 years old, son of Sean Derry, who you may remember as a well-known player back in the day. He had to be taken off after a clash of heads. It was quite worrying for quite a time, but he's in hospital, conscious and talking. And then there was another head clash between Morgan Gibbs-White and Robert Sanchez, the Chelsea keeper, and they both had to come off as well.
Really?
And they both had to be patched up with bandages. So it was pretty eventful all round. And this was for Chelsea. While Forest have pulled clear of the relegation zone, for Chelsea this was their 6th defeat in a row, their worst run for 33 years. Had they not scored that last goal, it would be the first time they'd ever gone six games.
Of course they haven't scored a goal, have
Six
they?
games in a row without scoring and being beaten. 6 defeats in a row without scoring would have been but for João Pedro's goal. But you've got to say well done to Forest. They pulled clear. David Pereira, who didn't have a great time when he was at Wolves, and he's done a great job for Forest and turned them around. After your lot put up such a pitiful show at the weekend, which I gather you were there to see, Kevin.
I was there to witness the embarrassment of Fulham, and I'm going to be honest with you here, we were lamentable, but I'm going to say this. Although Fulham were bad, there was a real sense that Arsenal suddenly got their mojo back. They were damn good. They played,
and Gyökeres played really well, and we've been waiting for him, if you like, to really prove himself, and I think he's starting to do that now. And you think 3 years ago, it was Coventry Celebration Parade today, by the way. Gyökeres used to play for them, and 3 years ago he was in a playoff final for Coventry.
Wow.
Now he's in a Champions League semi-final tomorrow night for Arsenal. However, in the more immediate, Arsenal got the 3 points. They're 6 points clear of Man City. Man City play tonight.
Yeah, they've got
2 games in hand, and they're at Everton tonight, 8 o'clock kickoff, and they will be looking to close that gap back on.
What's the maths? Manchester City. Is there going to be a goal difference?
Well, Arsenal have the slightly better goal difference now, but it's very close.
If they both win all their games, it'll come down to goal difference.
Then it goes to goals scored, and if it's all the same, then you'd have a playoff. But that's never happened, and you'd be very unlucky, the football authorities, if they ended up in that situation. But it is, I suppose, feasibly possible. We should also mention, as Forest have pulled clear of the relegation zone, that Spurs, of course,
I was about to say 2-1 against
quite
Villa.
a power of good. 2-1 at Villa. Villa also played a weakened team because of their game against Forest in the Europa League.
They should all do this.
But Forest weakened team won. Villa's was pretty poor, but they've already pretty much guaranteed their place in the Champions League. So Spurs took full advantage, played fairly well, won 2-1. and it means West Ham are really up against it now because they're in the bottom 3. They're a point now behind Spurs, and they got well duffed up by Brentford at the weekend. I think it's almost as lamentable a performance as Fulham.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sean. Let's keep going back to that, shall we?
I think that covers us off quite nicely, as I say.
All these nice Arsenal fans, because we were literally right in the clock end, right next to all the Arsenal chanters and all that. Very nice chaps. I was quite right next to them. They were going to be, bad luck, mate. No, bad luck, mate. You're a good side. I said, there's no bad luck about it. We are being played off the park by a much better team.
Myself, having been in that away end last week for the Newcastle game, where we put up quite a spirited performance, only lose 1-0, and Arsenal fans looking very relieved about that. Yeah. I think you're right. The mojo has changed. I think they're feeling a lot more confident now because of the way they dispatched Fulham.
Yeah, no, exactly right. It's Man City and Everton tonight.
Man City and Everton.
What's your thoughts about that game?
I feel that Man City will probably win it. I think they know what to do at this time of the season. They get in the zone. They usually finish quite strongly. Everton, not that much to play for. Outside chance of Europe, I suppose, but doesn't look like they'll get it. City obviously will be bang up for it, and they're in pretty good shape.
It's interesting times. There's always good fun at this time of the season. Well, so Coventry, just quickly, they've won the championship.
They won the title, and they were having their parade today as champions. And Ipswich were having their parade today because, of course, Ipswich have a celebration parade every 2 years because they get relegated, then they go back up again.
It's a tradition.
They have a parade. And Bromley were having their parade today for going up in League Two because they won League Two. There was lots of parades today.
Lots of parades in football, folks. Great stuff from Sean Custis, Director of Sport at The Sun. That's all in the back pages of your favourite newspaper tomorrow. Thank you very much, Sean. Back in a little while with Mark Littlewood. Stay where you are.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. We're trying to keep up with what's going on in Leipzig. We do understand, we know that a four-wheeler, a Volkswagen, we think, drove into a crowded shopping area in the middle of town, right near the market. A white man, we're told, has been arrested, but the police aren't saying anything more except for this is a multi-casual incident. So 2 people we know have died, many injured. Maybe there might be a bigger death count coming down the track, so we'll keep you updated with that. Earlier, I did speak to German-based reporter Rob Hyde. Here's what he had to say.
There was a car which ploughed into pedestrians in central Leipzig this afternoon, and of course it's got an eerie, sort of chilling reminder of other incidents in Germany where you've had vehicles ploughing in. You've got the 2016 attack in Berlin at the Christmas market, for example, or in Magdeburg, which was 2024. So again, a vehicle ploughed into pedestrians in the city centre. It was on a street called Grimmsche Straße. It's a busy pedestrian shopping. 2 people, as you rightly said, killed. At least 2 people seriously injured. These figures seem to be going up, and you'll have to be monitoring these. Now, police, they're saying very little, but they have officially classed this as a mass casualty incident, indicating a larger number of overall injured. So again, we'll have to be watching those statistics. It was near the Leipzig University. It was near the Nikolaskirche, the church. So it's really right in the centre, as with other attacks we've had. And the suspect has been arrested. Unfortunately, we're not getting many details other than he was reported as having been psychologically, disturbed at the time of arrest.
Yeah, as I said, a lot of people are at the time of arrest. But as I say, all details that I'm giving you are merely what we're hearing on the news grapevine, as it were. We're hearing that the suspect was a white guy, but I can't 100% confirm that. So we need to wait for official details to come through. We've got the mayor of Leipzig now talking on the TV. Mass casualty incident, so there could be more than 2 deaths. There could be more than 2 injuries. So we'll keep you posted. But as Rob Hyde was just saying, the worry there is we've seen several incidents in Germany along these lines. No classification yet that this was a terrorist incident, but that, of course, is what people are fearing, that having happened in Germany in the past. So we'll keep you updated. Let's go straight over to my next guest. But first, I should let you know in about 20-25 minutes, we'll be going over to America to talk to Kinsey Schofield about the latest on the royal scene, particularly Meghan and Harry. Reports that they're spiralling as they burn all their bridges. No one wants to talk to them anymore, including the British royal family. I think matters might be coming to a head with those 2. We'll talk about that in just a little while. But first, let's go through some of the big stories of the day with the director at Popular Conservatism, Mark Littlewood. Welcome, Mark.
Evening, Kevin. Good to be with you.
Always a pleasure to have you on the show. Let's talk about Starmer's foreign trip first, the latest. We think it's his 45th since he became Prime Minister. As I said earlier, one thing we know, as soon as there is strife, domestic strife back here in Britain, our leader will be on the first available plane, flying out to somewhere abroad where he can strut around pretending he's important and where people don't hold him in the same degree of contempt that we do here in Britain. This time he's flown off to Armenia, where the EU mob are meeting, and what he's doing is lobbying them to allow us, Britain, back into the single market, back into the European Union in all but name, and for that privilege we will be charged £1 billion. We should remind the Prime Minister that in 2016, we, the British people, voted against the single market. We voted against anything to do with the EU, and he's over in Armenia negotiating that democratic decision away. What on earth is he playing at?
Yeah, it's maddening, Kevin, and it looks like we're going to end up with the worst of all possible worlds. You know, I listened carefully to those who wanted to stay in the EU, and at least they had a case that you would, I suppose, have a seat round the table. You might be able to influence events. But here, we would just be accepting receipt of EU rules, that we will comply with whatever they sort of throw in our direction. So you get bound by the shackles of the EU without having any influence or say on what it's likely to do. Now, look, the reason that Brexit has not been the glorious success that most people wanted it to be, at least those who voted for it, is we sort of threw off the chains and the shackles of the EU, but then we decided not to walk out of the dungeon, right? We just kept lingering there. We didn't really use our freedoms to deregulate businesses, to be a much freer economy. So Starmer's now decided he wants to shackle us to it again. The idea that if you want economic growth, and I note that they've stopped sort of saying economic growth is our number one priority, but the idea that you would want to tie yourselves into one of the most over-regulated, inefficient, slow growth areas of the world is for the birds. I want free trade with the EU. I want it to be as frictionless as possible, but I want the UK to retain complete control of its own regulatory affairs, and Starmer is on the verge of giving that away.
Indeed. He's also going to sign us up to this Ukraine loan scheme, the EU loan scheme, which is for £78 billion, over 90 billion euros. We will have to contribute quite a lot, billions of pounds, on top of the £1 billion a year he's going to commit us to rejoin the single market, outrageously. So he's going over there to hand over billions and billions of pounds of British money to foreign powers. That's not what we voted for. And in terms of this loan, I've been asking all my esteemed guests today, you know, it's a complex situation, and I do understand geopolitically why it is quite important for the Western nations to support Ukraine in its bid to stop Putin. You can't just let him advance willy-nilly without any resistance. So it is important that we help Ukraine resist Russian aggression, Russian territorial aggression. I get that. That said, if you ask millions of people around Britain right now struggling in the cost of living crisis, who would you rather Keir Starmer spent your money on? Yeah. Ukraine or you? Yeah. Who do you think they would choose? They would choose Britain. My point is this. If you look at all these MPs when they're on TV, the cabinet ministers, doesn't matter if they're from the Tories or the SNP or Lib Dem, Labour, they've all got their little Ukraine badges on, the Ukraine flag, and they all believe that all of us plebs out there in Britain land, we all support the unmitigated generosity towards Ukraine that we continue to bestow. I don't think the people of Britain do support that anymore. I think they're sick of it. They're saying, hang on a second, you're telling us that handing billions of pounds to the EU for a loan scheme and also to get into your single market, you're telling us, Starmer, that is good for Britain. It isn't. I'll tell you who it's good for, Mark. It's good for him because it appeases his left-wing backbenchers and it is his future in their hands. He no longer cares about British citizens because they don't have a vote on his future. His left-wing Labour MPs do. Those are the only crowd that he's playing to now. He's forgotten about us. He is going cap in hand to the EU to appease the lefties in whose hands his future lies.
Yeah, that's about right, Kev. And look, I agree with you that, you know, I'm highly sympathetic to Ukraine. And you could say that it would be interesting to invest in the hoped-for future that Ukraine is no longer under bombardment and is able to operate as a free economy. And if money up front now would render good rates of return later, I'm all ears. But this loan is not going to be given at anything approaching a commercial rate. And Starmer's giving the impression, isn't he, that the UK government is awash with cash. You would think we were running massive budget surpluses, looking around for projects to spend money on, that the money was rolling in and we just couldn't find enough, good deeds to direct it to. Well, I mean, the opposite is the case. The UK's balance sheet is catastrophic. We have been running budget deficits now for a quarter of a century. The tax and spend approach of this government, incentivising welfare over work, is worsening our finances. It is true that that's worsened by the war in Iran as well, but as Warren Buffett was fond of saying, when the tide goes out, you see who's swimming naked. And I'm afraid the UK's been swimming naked. We have not built a resilient and robust economy. So I'm rather with you. You would think that the clarion call to the Prime Minister from the electorate, if not from his left-wing backbenchers, is could we have a bit more attention on what you're going to do to turn around the status of the UK, rather than what you're doing in Armenia talking to the EU, or your assistance for Ukraine, however well-intentioned that might be. So, yeah, I mean, we just haven't sorted out the fundamentals, the building blocks of Britain's own economy. In fact, this government, in its near 2 years in power, have made those building blocks more fragile and the overall foundations considerably worse.
Well, the serious effect of the Iran war could be about to get a lot worse, because it looks like the ceasefire might be crashing to an end as we speak. We're hearing that Dubai is under fire again. The Iranians are claiming that they've attacked an American warship of all craft, but we don't know the veracity of that. But it does seem as if peace in the Middle East is still a forlorn dream. It's not going to happen. Looks like the ceasefire's over. So if only,
Kevin, we'd had a dash for gas and been drilling for oil in the North Sea, right? Rather than banning it, right? That would be a much better position for us to be.
That is one thing to worry about. The other thing to worry about in these difficult economic circumstances is our increasing addiction to the welfare state. You just alluded to it. We are now shelling out more in welfare than we bring in income tax. That is a terrible milestone to pass. We are in bad trouble there. We're also learning today, and this is what I want to get your thoughts on, Mark, that this is incredible. New statistics reveal that more than 600,000 households, more than 600,000 homes in this country are raking in more than £32,000 per year in welfare, in benefit payments. The reason I mentioned £32,000 is that is the average income of a household that includes people with jobs. The average income for a working person with a job in this country is £32,000 a year. There are 600,000 households, that's a lot more than 1 million people, who are earning, if I can put it that way, more by not working and claiming benefits. Once again, this is dysfunctional and utterly economically unsustainable. We've got to do something about this.
Yeah, it needs a total overhaul, Kevin. I don't think a little bit of minor surgery and a nip and a tuck is going to sort it. You're right about the cost. So the total cost of what economists call transfer payments, just moving money from one cohort taxpayers to another, those receiving welfare who are supposedly on need, that is now eclipsed the total revenues of income tax. I mean, this is so far beyond the scale of what was imagined when the welfare state was established. But as you rightly say, the position is worse than that, because it's not just costly, it completely screws up incentives in the economy. The British workforce are being given a very clear message from the government that it basically ain't worth working if you're on an average salary. Now, still most people diligently do the best they can, but with high taxes and very generous welfare, there is a huge disincentive to strive harder. There's more of an incentive to sit back. And we are clearly giving the message that actually you can be just about, perhaps even better off out of work than in it. And once that becomes embedded in the system, you are in a disastrous situation. The economy will not grow. People will rationally respond to incentives. And the government has set up all of the wrong incentives. So we've got to overhaul this system from top to bottom. We've got to start with, I think, a completely blank sheet of paper, not just sort of trying to dial back a little benefit here or changing one or two forms there. We've got to decide who is the welfare state for and when. It's got to be focused on the bottom, I don't know what, 5 or 10% of the population, not the middle tranche of the population. And we should revert to what William Beveridge said. He was the brains behind setting up the welfare state, often heralded as a hero of the left. But look at his initial report way back in the 1940s, the Beveridge report. He makes it very plain that welfare should be provided, quote, at subsistence levels and for a temporary period of time. Well, we are now giving out colossal amounts of money permanently. That needs to be rowed back if you want to get the economy back on its feet, because the message from this government is loud and clear. If you work, you'll be punished. And if you sit on your backside, you will be indulged. No wonder we're not seeing any GDP growth and that we're seeing so much trouble in the labour market.
Indeed, and one of the reasons that our economy is in trouble is because of our addiction to welfare. And as you quite rightly say, this government has made the welfare lifestyle, the lifestyle of just claiming benefits and not working, is more attractive. It's more, there's more of an incentive to claim welfares and not work than to go out to work, and that is unsustainable. Now, why is the Prime Minister continuing to back our welfare state, our massive unsustainable welfare state? Because, once again, his far left backbenchers want him to do that. Everything he does now is performative for them. Not for us, not for the public, not for the British citizens, not for voters. It's for his left-wing backbenchers, because they hold the key to his future. If they support him, he can carry on as Prime Minister, but if they don't, he can't. And let's talk about his problems in that respect, Mark. Here we've got Ed Miliband. This is kind of breaking news. It looks as if Ed has ruled himself out as a potential new leader should Starmer go after Thursday's local election results, which are predicted to be catastrophically bad for Labour. So if Starmer goes, Miliband is ruling himself out to be the next leader, but is apparently eyeing up a Chancellor role to be the Chancellor of the Exchequer under Andy Burnham. I think I'd rather Ed was the Prime Minister than the Chancellor, I'll tell you that. Also, of course, West Streeting, we understand, the Health Secretary, he has enough support, numerical support among Labour MPs to defenestrate the Prime Minister. And of course, there's also Angela Rayner, who's on manoeuvres. She's got her stamp duty tax problems, but if she sorts them out, she might make a run as well. I'm told in Westminster circles that the front runner is probably Andy Burnham, who has a seat ready for him and can be in Parliament within weeks. So Ed Burnham potentially in pole position, but West Streeting to worry about. Ed Miliband wants to be the Chancellor. Angela Rayner has plans. It's going to be a very tricky few days, is it not, for the Prime Minister after the elections on Thursday?
Yeah, this time next week, Kevin, will be a bloodbath in the Labour Party if the results are anything like as bad as polls are predicting. Even if the polls have overstated it, this is going to be a result for an incumbent government the like of which we have not seen in our lifetimes, in terms of the shattering of their share of the vote and the commensurate collapse in their local representation in English councils and in Scotland and Wales, formerly their heartlands. What you're going to see there, I doubt, is going to be a surgical strike on the Prime Minister. It's just going to be a massive pile-on. The Labour Party is split into different factions around different personalities. You've got the complexity of Andy Burnham, who may be the favourite, but is presently ineligible. Well, if he were to replace Starmer, they've got to find a Labour MP willing to step down and fast. Maybe he's got that in the top pocket.
I'm hearing he has.
But he has to win that seat. He has to win that seat. In the Gorton and Denton by-election, OK, some polls suggest he might have won, but there is a danger and a risk that Burnham will run and lose. There is virtually nothing approaching a safe Labour seat left in the country. There is a risk involved there. There is no racing certainty seat. And can you imagine that parliamentary by-election, Kev? What a fiasco. The message will be vote Labour to get rid of the Labour Prime Minister. Very unorthodox message. Right? Very, very strange indeed. So I'm expecting a very, very messy bloodbath. But if the Labour MPs and these, senior figures don't move against Starmer at about this time next week, when all the results will be known, he could limp on forever. They've got a wide open window, probably of a few days in about a week's time. But if they don't seize that opportunity, that window will slam shut pretty quick.
It just shows you how dysfunctional that party is, because that they all know that if Starmer carries on being their leader, their chances of, even moderate disaster in the next election will just dissipate. If Starmer is their leader when they go into the general election, annihilation will be the name of the game. I mean, they will be annihilated, and yet there are signs that it looks like that impotent party will not be able to do anything about this lame duck leader, which is extraordinary. Mark, very good to talk to you as always. Great stuff. Thank you very much. That is Mark Littlewood, the leader of the Popular Conservatives. Next up, we're going to take some of your calls, and after that, Kinsey Schofield will join us from America for the latest with Harry and Meghan. It's getting pretty dramatic on that front, so you don't want to miss that. But next, your calls 0344 499 1000. Let's talk. It's good to talk on Talk.
Is Starmer fueling anti-Semitism?
I don't think he's doing anything to deal with anti-Semitism. The attempt to gaslight the British people and the Jewish community is appalling.
This has to stop. It's almost being normalised, and it's terrifying, and we're sick of it. Enough's enough.
Don't be shocked, and don't you bloody dare claim to be shocked or upset or care about Jewish people being stabbed on the streets of our capital city in broad daylight. This is on you.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back in a little while. We're going to be taking your calls en masse. 03444991000. We're going to talk to Kinsey Schofield first in just a little while. Then we're going to go back to the phone. So there's going to be a big batch of phone calls towards the end of the show. Last 25 minutes or so. Get involved. Get on the phone and get it off your chest. 03444991000. What the hell is the Prime Minister doing in Armenia? Giving away billions of pounds to the EU, to Ukraine. We could do with that money, couldn't we? 03444991000. Are Reform UK right to tell constituencies that vote Green that they will get detention centres built on their doorsteps? 03444991000. And what do you think about the price of a pint of beer? It is going over £10 for the first time in drinking history in London. Several bars now charging more than £10 a pint, including, I think, my local. I was saying earlier to Isabel Oakshott that I seem to manage to get a drink of a glass of rosé in my local for about 24 quid the other day. I don't know how I managed that. Amazing. 24 for a glass of wine, £10 for a pint of beer. If you think about it, 10 quid for a pint of beer, that is quite considerably more expensive than a bottle of wine in a supermarket or an off licence, isn't it? You can get a nicest bottle of wine for 7 or 8 quid. £10 for a pint in a pub. What's going on? 03444991000. Let me know. Would you pay £10 for a pint? Let's go to Tom in Sunderland. Hello, Tom.
Hello, Kevin. Good evening to you. Loving the show as usual.
Thank you. What would you like to say, Tom?
Right. So trigger warnings.
Oh yeah.
Basically, they should be taken in the context of trigger. An uneducated or sort of naive sort of person from Roger.
Oh yeah, from. I hadn't thought about that. You mean trigger from Only Fools and Horses trigger warnings.
Yeah. So you have to describe what's going to happen before it's happened, just to make the audience aware.
Well, there is something, Tom, that's quite appropriate about naming these trigger warnings after Trigger from Only Fools and Horses, because Trigger was incredibly stupid. And these trigger warnings, most of these trigger warnings are incredibly stupid. This is a play, a satire on the rise of Adolf Hitler. It's a satire on the Nazis and Hitler, and there are trigger warnings warning you that there may be references to Hitler and the Nazis. Well, gee, you could knock me down with a feather. Why are they bothering to tell us that?
Well, because the true definition of fascist has been put onto the usual culprits, the British citizens. We're all fascists unless we believe in the mantra that's going on at the moment.
What they're actually saying, Tom, is that we'll be shocked and traumatised by the very concept of right-wing politics. So they are warning us that there may be scenes of right-wing ideology. That's just so ridiculous, isn't it?
I mean, Kevin, the British people have been so accepting of the Jews since God knows when. And, especially with the Holocaust, we welcome them with open arms. Yeah. So to say that the blame lies on us, it's ridiculous. We all know where it's coming from. We all know the elephant in the room. It's just that those that point at the elephant are the ones that's been scrutinised. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly right. It's all part of wokery. To suggest that we're absolutely horrified and traumatised by the very concept that right-wing politics even exists. That's ridiculous. It makes children of us. It infantilises us. It insults our intelligence, Tom, and in my view, it's got to stop. But listen, mate, thank you for a very good call. Always a pleasure. Give me a call again. Tom in Sunderland there. Trigger warnings. Aren't they ridiculous? It's like I said in my monologue, it's a bit like, putting on a play of Romeo and Juliet and warning the audience that there may be references to Romeo and Juliet. It's just absurd and it insults our intelligence. Let me know what you think about that. 0344 499 1000. Let me read a few messages. Get on the phone. As I say, we're going to talk to Kinsey, but then we're going to come back to you. 0344 499 1000. Here's one from Phil in Portsmouth. He says, instead of giving trigger warnings, Kev, why do we not start teaching people about past history so we can understand where we are at the moment? Phil, exactly. Yes, exactly. Sensible. Good idea. Common sense. It'll never catch on. Haggy says, so why are bars closing? You can get 10 cans of San Miguel for 10 quid in a supermarket. Good point, isn't it? I mean, more and more people go to the offies. They don't go to all the supermarkets because that's how you can drink economically. It's a real shame because it's killing pubs. There's more to pubs than just drinking alcohol. It's all about socialising, exchange of ideas, fun place to go, social hub, kind of thing that keeps communities cohesive, all of that. And yet they're closing down because people just can't afford the prices. As I say, let me know. Would you pay £10 for a pint of beer? 0344 499 1000. I think I probably have quite a few times because I live in London. I barely notice. I'm not much of a beer drinker, actually, but as I say, I think I did recently spend £24 for a glass of rosé. I just couldn't be bothered. You know, I was at the bar. They said, sorry, we're giving you the expensive type. We've run out of the normal type. Afraid it's £24. Should have asked you, do you want that? And I just sort of thought, oh, you know, so I just went, yeah, no, that's fine. And spent £24 on a glass of wine in a pub. So would you spend £24 on a glass of rosé? Would you spend £10 on a pint? 0344 499 1000. Let's go to break. Talk to you in a little bit, but next up we're going to go over to America and talk to our royal guru, Kinsey Schofield, about all the latest happenings on Planet Harry and Meghan, and a little bit about the King and his triumphant tour of the United States of America. All that still to come. Stay exactly where you are. Back in a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. It's a 33-year-old German citizen has been arrested in Leipzig for that car ramming. So far, we know that 2 people have died, have been killed in that horrific incident as he drove into a crowded shopping area right near the market square at the centre of Leipzig town. 33-year-old German citizen, that's all we know. We don't know yet whether or not this will be classified as a terrorist incident. It has been classified as a mass casualty incident. So apart from the 2 deaths, I believe there have been quite a few injuries as well. So we'll try and keep you updated until the end of the show. I'm sure Peter Cardwell will keep you across it as well as he takes you into the night up till 10 p.m. Now, more of that in just a little while. Taking your calls in a little while as well. 03444991000. But first up, let's go across to the United States and talk to our royal guru, Kinsey Schofield, host of Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered. Welcome, Kins.
Hey, Kev. Good to see you.
Always a pleasure. Now, some pretty apocalyptic stories about Harry and Meghan across the weekend. The Mail and the Express here in Britain running stories saying that there's an increasing divide as a suggestion that Meghan's naked pursuit of money is proving to be uncomfortable for Harry. He grew up in the royal family where you never even talked about money, let alone address the reality of needing money. He finds this all very uncomfortable. Meanwhile, shall we say, her aggressive pursuit of success, fame and fortune has caused problems, according to the Mail. The Mail saying that the couple, the Sussexes, have burned their bridges with major American figures, including Anna Wintour, the editor of Vogue magazine, and the Kardashians. More and more Hollywood movers and shakers don't want anything to do with the Sussexes. Meanwhile, the royal family, I mean, I know this, apart from Charlie, King Charles, the royal family don't want to know this couple anymore. They don't care anymore. They don't care whether they see Harry ever again. The king is holding out hopes that he might see them again, but even he is coming towards the end of his tether. We're hearing that all of this behind closed doors at Montecito Towers, where they live, is causing Meghan to spiral. It does seem that their cash crisis, this couple need money, and her venal pursuit of cash is causing big problems for this couple. Matters are coming to a head, do you think, Kinsey?
Well, we know that Meghan traveled to Chicago over the last few days for just to see for the christening, I believe, of one of her friends from Northwestern. So, you know, she's currently not at home. They also went out of their way to plant a cover story with, I know this thanks to People magazine. They also went out of their way to plant a cover story with People magazine in the middle of the King's state visit. So a glossy picture of Harry and Meghan on the cover with the headline, Harry making his own rules. Now, was this solely to distract from the King's state visit? Was it to distract from William and Catherine's 15th wedding anniversary because it dropped on the same day? Or was it to counteract some of these negative headlines that they knew were coming because their publicist was given a heads up, asked to respond to some of these stories that are circulating? I think it's probably a combination of all three: distract from Charles, distract from William, and also combat some negative headlines that are on the horizon. Because if you believe the People magazine cover story, they deem the Australia tour an incredibly successful venture, the new template for their future. No apologies regarding Meghan's app, where she is seen or was seen next to ill children and Bondi Beach victims while shilling her clothing. Africa is the tour stop I heard that they're trying to plan next. So Meghan in a $6,000 outfit while malnourished children are crawling all over her is the visual I guess you can anticipate for the next app update. But they certainly don't want us to think that things are going south right now. I do believe that there is a pattern when it comes to people not wanting to work with them. We saw all of these people falling over themselves to have their picture taken with King Charles and Queen Camilla, Sarah Jessica Parker in New York, Anna Wintour in New York as well. Those types of individuals are trying to avoid work with Harry and Meghan, don't want their picture taken with Harry and Meghan. And Harry and Meghan aren't typically invited to the types of events that those A-list celebrities are at. So it's an example of Harry and Meghan not succeeding in the way that they truly wish they were in Hollywood.
Is it the Met Gala that the Sussexes have not been invited to, proving that they are no longer regarded as being part of America's A-list?
Now, you know, I hesitate. It's tonight. I'll be there. That's why I'm in New York right now. I hesitate to...
I thought you got your fashionable vest on there.
Yeah, no, that starts. I have started the face, but and it will take hours.
The face looks great, Kinsey. I'd suggest you kind of rack it up a bit with the outfit. Yeah.
I'm actually embarrassed of the outfit because it's shoulder. It exposes my shoulders, which is a lot more skin than I'm used to showing in these days, or at all, really.
Sounds great. It sounds great.
Southern Baptist.
You're going to look $1 million. I know you will. But why?
I hesitate to say that Meghan is not coming. I thought that the trip to Chicago was interesting. Maybe she is on her way to New York, crossing the country. She is shameless. She's absolutely shameless. Would she beg for a presence on this carpet? Yes. And Venus Williams, Serena Williams' sister, is on the committee. Meghan Markle's friend, Beyonce, also on the committee. Remember Meghan Markle?
Yeah.
Repeating private text messages Beyonce was sending to her in her Netflix docuseries. I think that Meghan is not above begging for a presence here, calling and asking, can I please come, the way that she did for Paris Fashion Week. I do believe that Anna Wintour has chosen the winning side of this, and that's the working royals. She knows William and Catherine are the future, but they also know that Meghan Markle generates headlines wherever she goes, and I think that she would be so desperate that she would do whatever it took to have a presence here. So I hate to commit to Meghan Markle not having a presence at the Met Gala yet. I'm not sure.
Well, I wanted to go for one reason, because I'd like to see the look on her face when she notices that you're there as well. You and I should go together. That would make her night. But seriously, let us know what happens there, Kinsey. But interesting report in the Daily Express over here. Saying, and I can see some truth in this, it seems plausible to me. You know, Harry's not exactly the most stylish person on earth, but he was raised in royal circles where you never talk about money, you never confront the reality of money. That is not something that you share with the public. Well, Meghan doesn't understand that, and she's out there nakedly, not literally nakedly, but nakedly and palpably just huckstering, trying to get cash on the back of her royal title. You know, the sick children line of clothes that she tried to sell in Australia, the terrorist bomb victim or shooting victim line of clothes she tried to sell in Australia. Now, we're hearing that even Harry finds this venal approach to being royal that she is pursuing. He's finding it gauche and uncomfortable. Now, if Harry's finding it gauche and uncomfortable, trust me, that means it's gauche and uncomfortable. I think it's gauche and uncomfortable, don't you?
There's no doubt. It's vulgar. Shameless is too nice of a word. It's cruel. I mean, I hate to vocalize this, but we don't know how much longer those children will be here that were photographed next to her in her black sleeveless dress. But those, you know, Meghan is going to try to sell you that dress she's wearing, no matter whose faces are in it. This is coming from the same couple that are trying to teach people not to share their children's images on social media. But if they're next to Harry and Meghan, they're fair game on the internet and on newspapers everywhere. The hypocrisy is unbelievable. I think that Harry probably does realize that it's inappropriate, but I think he is so bitter that he has been iced out, that he is acting out. And that's what I'm seeing right now.
Yeah, I mean, but it does seem. I agree with you, Kins, but I think that behind the gilded gates of Montecito Towers, I do think all is not well. I'm not suggesting that that people are always going, "Oh, Harry and Meghan, they're set for divorce." I don't think divorce
I
is right.
I will tell you that I talked to a lot of people in DC.
Yeah.
There were some of Prince Harry's old friends in DC at the garden party. I talked to several people that have socialized with Harry over the years, and they said they felt like Harry was trying to create the path back for him in the UK.
Yeah.
And no one said they felt like Meghan Markle wanted to join him.
That's what I wanted to ask you. The thing is that when they went to Australia, you said People magazine trying to depict it as a triumph, because People magazine is obviously Meghan's favourite friendly publication. But it wasn't a triumph. It was the worst nightmare for the British royals. This is what the Queen, the late great Queen Elizabeth II, definitely did want. This was her nightmare. This is what she didn't want, that these two, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, would start trading shamelessly, cruelly, as you said, on their royal titles. That's what they're doing. The royal family, including King Charles, are mortified by this, and I know there's pressure on Charles to start thinking about swinging the axe, to at least tell Harry, you don't stop cashing in on your royal titles, I will take your royal titles away. They're dicing with a death when it comes to that, this couple, aren't they?
Yeah, yes, but I also feel like the king should be angrier when it comes to Harry representing who in Ukraine and potentially jeopardizing a very important state visit, a visit that was determining the future of the relationship between our two countries. There's Harry with Yvette Cooper's counsel challenging not only Putin but President Trump within days of King Charles's official visit. I think it's beyond cheapening the brand and jeopardizing the value of the monarchy. And it's, we should be concerned about Harry representing both of our countries on a world stage and slipping up and creating more problems for us politically, with the way that he runs his mouth off. And again, representing who? He says he's a working member of the British royal family, but he's not. He does not represent the British royal family. He does not represent...
Does not work.
Yeah.
It doesn't work, doesn't represent the royals. Couldn't agree with you more. Listen, Kinsey, got to go, but have a fantastic night tonight and let me know all about it, and let me know whether or not Her Majesty Meghan Markle arrives. That'll be interesting. The brilliant Kinsey Schofield, host of Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered there. Next up, your calls. 03444991000. We'll do that to the end of the show. Get on the phone. Let's talk. It's good to talk on Talk.
Starmer fueling anti-Semitism?
I don't think he's doing anything to deal with anti-Semitism. The attempt to gaslight the British people and the Jewish community is appalling.
This has to stop. It's almost being normalised, and it's terrifying, and we're sick of it. Enough's enough.
Don't be shocked, and don't you bloody dare claim to be shocked or upset or care about Jewish people being stabbed on the streets of our capital city in broad daylight. This is on you.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. A couple of messages. This is text messages. This is Zarina says the onset of the £10 pint will see an increase in poor mental health. I agree. This is from Chris in Ottershaw. He says, hi, Kev. I am 77 years old and I can remember being able to buy 8 pints of light and bitter for £1. It sounds like a good night, Chris. But it used to be so much cheaper. To wit, Tim in Harrogate says, in the 60s, me and my mates used to go out on a Friday night. We each had a £1 note. We'd have 5 pints each and then go for a curry when the pubs closed, all for £1. Amazing, amazing. One last text. This is Anne talking about Maureen Lipman, who's being heckled, or as the campaigners don't want her to appear at His Majesty's Theatre in Aberdeen because she's Jewish. Anne says, I'm in Aberdeenshire and I'm absolutely disgusted. Let Maureen do her job. This is not her first time in Aberdeen, so why now? That poor woman gets a lot of grief just for being Jewish, for being prominent and Jewish. It's anti-Semitism, folks. It's racism. Why do we allow it? Why do we allow it? 03444991000. Let's go to the phones. Let's talk to Mary in Hemel Hempstead. Hi, Mary. What would you like to say?
Good evening, Kevin. Well, regarding the what they're going to do, the reform.
Reform and the Greens, yeah.
I hope that they do it with all the councils. That's if they get in, hopefully. They do it with all the councils that want to welcome these immigrants.
You know the problem with that, Mary? I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I can see the fun of it, or saying to Green constituencies or even Lib Dem constituencies, oh, you think mass migration is so great? You think not having any proper borders is brilliant? Well, how do you like this? Have a migrant detention centre next door to yourself. How do you like that? I can see the fun of that. But what about all the people in a Green constituency who support reform, who voted reform? Isn't it a bit unfair to them?
Well, it might seem like that, but the point is they're having it imposed on them anyway by the people that have been put in power, by them.
Yeah.
Brighton is particularly famous for it, but there are probably a lot of people there that are most unhappy with it, but they're being ignored.
But, I mean, would you, for example, Mary, I cited this example earlier, under this system, Reform UK would impose on Gorton and Denton a migrant detention centre, punishing that constituency for going Green, for voting Green. Well, the point is that was quite a close-run thing, and thousands and thousands and thousands of Reform supporters in Gorton and Denton voted Reform. Reform want to punish them because there was a Green majority and therefore they get a detention centre. Do you see what I mean? It's not very fair to the Reform supporters, is it?
Well, no, I don't think it's punishment. I think what it is they want open borders.
Well, not the Reform supporters, but the Reform supporters who live in, say, Gorton and Denton, they don't want open borders.
No, I understand, but if you don't do something like this, I've said it for a long time, like in London, for example, if they're very Green or whatever, fine, then put a lot more in there, but if they want them.
Yeah. I know what you're saying, Mary. You think it's time to take a stand and do something dramatic. I mean, I understand that point, but I do think there are problems with this policy. But yeah, I understand what you're saying. Thank you very much. Excellent call. Mary in Hemel Hempstead. Let's quickly talk to Andrew in Halifax. Hi, Andrew. What would you like to say?
Hello there, Kevin. Well, it's just this business of, trigger warnings or changing the names
pathetic,
of people.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I work in disability outreach. I took the young lad I look after over to a Thomas the Tank Engine extravaganza over in Bury at the
Don't tell me there were trigger warnings.
Oh, no. Well,
okay.
Because I grew up with Thomas.
Warning,
53.
may contain trains or something.
No. And they kept referring to this character, Sir Topham Hatt, and I thought, who the hell is Sir Topham?
Oh, is that the Fat Controller?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't call him the Fat Controller anymore.
I couldn't believe it.
It's pathetic, isn't it? It's pathetic.
Crazy.
Yeah. Listen, Andrew, I'm with you all the way. I've got to move on, though, because the show's almost over. Good call. Call me again. Andrew in Halifax. Peter Cardwell's in the studio. He's going to take you through to 10 p.m. And with what will you fill the ensuing 3 hours?
We may well have a chat about the horizontally challenged controller, certainly, but we're talking more about anti-Semitism. Zach Polanski accusing the Met Police chief of interfering in elections. He got absolutely hammered in an interview on Sky News yesterday. We'll have a little bit of a look at that.
Yeah, by the way, what's he saying? He's saying because there's a local elections coming up, you're not allowed to criticise me, Sir Mark
Yes,
Rowley.
yet he criticises the police.
Come on. What about that idea, that story? He hasn't denied it, that he goes on to Blue Sky more than 100 times every day. What else does he do?
Well, he's retweeted something like 38,000 times in a year. It's a lot.
He should do something else.
We'll talk about Maureen Lipman as well, depicted as a devil by pro-Palestinian